Talk to him.
Oh, we just gonna get.
Alrighty, let's see. Waiting, and there we go. Alrighty, we are live here at youtube.com/TYT Sports. Rick Strom, Jason Rubin, Britton Harden. We're gonna have so many others as well. The funny thing is, I'm watching the delayed reaction of the stream, and Britton is like this. All right,
hey, I'm trying to soak up as much of this fight as I can.
As well as you should. By the way, just to get this out of the way, fuck the undercards. Oh my god, man. Brutal. Am I the only one?
No. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would have loved a better showing from Gervonta Davis. He obviously came in a little weight drained, didn't perform to the best of his abilities, but he got the victory tonight. So a win is a win.
All right, so who gives a shit? So Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor. Here we go. Overall impressions, me personally, impressed with Conor McGregor. The first 4 rounds, his prediction was he was going to knock him out. He had one clean shot in the first round that was like, oh shit.
Left uppercut.
The left uppercut was like, damn, like we didn't know if Conor had that in his bag full of tricks. But the thing is, it wasn't flush, Britton. It wasn't flush. It landed first on Floyd's chest and then went up. If it landed flush, it doesn't even matter. It's ifs, ands, and buts. Overall impressions of what you thought about Conor McGregor's game. We knew that Floyd was going to win. We didn't know that it would be this competitive, though.
No, you know, I kind of thought that Floyd would take less punches. I'm glad that this is his last fight. He didn't look like the Floyd Mayweather who fought Andre Berto or Manny Pacquiao.
He looked 40.
But as he said, I'm not the fighter I was 2 years ago, but I got enough to beat you, and that's what we saw tonight. So, you know, 50-0.
Jason?
I'm just impressed, man. Like I'm a fight fan, so when I see a fight that surprises me and is more compelling than what the public, and I'm in that same group of, I give Conor a 0.1% chance. 3-4 rounds, it looked hell of a lot more than a 0.1% chance, and the fact that it was at one point a fight just goes to show that there is some credit to be given to Conor McGregor. Now, in the end, yeah, that's what should have happened. I mean, Floyd absolutely teed off on Conor in those last 2 rounds. One of the most interesting – there's 2 really interesting takeaways I wanted to throw to Britton. For one, because when we went to the gym, we were going through how McGregor could beat Mayweather, how Mayweather's going to beat McGregor. You really nailed the McGregor side of that. You knew all the Floyd stuff because you've got 49 tapes of Floyd Mayweather as a professional fighter. And you knew precisely which ones to pick out strategically, but it's a little more difficult when you're fighting, I don't know, a guy who doesn't box. But from the McGregor side, what I was really impressed by is how loose he came out, aggressive and loose, and how he was going to throw him different angles. And even the commentators are going, oh, they sounded surprised. And I'm going, well, Britton knew that. Why are you guys surprised at that? Like, it was the guy I'm talking to knows this shit. So, I mean, overall, I'm just happy. I thought it was a good fight to watch. And in the end, as a fan of the sport, I just want to be entertained. And I was entertained.
Yeah. I agree with you, Jason. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on how effective Floyd was at his strategy. And it was obvious that his strategy, like he said from the jump, I'm going to walk to him. We're going to get him tired and we're going to drown him late. This is what I had been saying almost ad nauseum to people that Floyd Mayweather was going to try and do. I did think that Floyd would kind of dart in and out to make Conor miss some of those big shots a little bit more, but he was perfectly comfortable standing in the pocket, walking directly in front of him, not cutting angles, walking him down, walking straight to him. I don't know if I saw Floyd take one backward step in this fight. He was coming forward the entire time. So while he looked 40 years old, sure, because he took a bit more leather, but when you're walking forward, everyone's going to take leather. And I just have to say, for a 40-year-old man to get the mark of 50-0, he was already a Hall of Fame boxer, but to really solidify himself and come for Rocky Marciano's number, I'm just really happy for him.
Guys, so I want to make this very clear for everybody watching. By the way, thank you for tuning in, firstly. Secondly, send all of your thoughts, mainly questions, in the comments section below for myself, Jason, and, of course, Britton. One comment that had me fucking rolling was Robbie Geary saying, shout out to the guys with better facial hair than Jason in the background.
What are you talking about? I shaved today. I went clean
Bro,
shaven.
you're growing it out for like 3 weeks. Tell them bullshit the fans.
Look, what are you talking about, bullshit the fam? Look at literally the videos I did yesterday.
You look like a shaved something. I'm not going to say what it is.
Shaved ball sacks? Are we about to say to me? Look, we went clean shaven. We used the Barbasol, that 99-cent stuff
Close
that comes
shave
from the
America.
Pharmacy. Very
Close
good
shave
on the place. It's got. It's even got. Do you want me to go get my Barbasol with the aloe vera on it? It's nice. It's smooth.
No, we want to talk boxing, bro. We don't want any of that.
You know, in the words of Conor, oh, you look like a clean Irishman, I tell you.
Look. I could be the new Pretty Boy Floyd if they want. I'd like the money, but I'll be Pretty Boy Floyd for now.
How much? If you were to give a paycheck to Conor in this fight, we know that he was guaranteed 30. He was going to get upwards of 100. Britton, what would you give him if you had to give him a paycheck right now, based on the performance that you just saw?
Based on the performance that I saw?
Yes, sir.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, if he was my employee, I'd probably give him I'd probably give him the $100 million. I mean, this is what he signed up for. He put on a much better showing of himself than people thought that he would do. I mean, I'm not going to say that he just played well in the Floyd's hands, because, he landed some shots on Floyd that even I'm sitting here and I'm like, come on, Floyd, like you're getting hit with this kind of stuff. Like, I want you to get out of the way.
What exactly? What stuck out to you?
There was a particular point in the fight where Floyd went defensive and he, kind of crouched down, and he seemed as if he was trying to avoid a 3 or 4 punch combination from Conor, and he got hit with every single punch. Mm-hmm. And I said in our breakdown how McGregor can beat Floyd Mayweather that we recorded at the Legends Gym last week. If Conor McGregor can punch in combination and force a reaction out of Floyd, he may have a shot here. And when I saw him land that 3 to 4 punch combination, it kind of had me worried for a second, because it started off with a really nice left hand and the rest of the shots didn't have too much on it. But, it had me thinking, is Floyd dazed here? Is he playing? Like, what is he doing? And I just don't like that kind of, unknown when watching these fights.
Hey guys, by the way, breaking news: Francis Maxwell has joined us here at youtube.com/TYTsports.
He looks sad.
Well, he's half Irish. Come on, of course he's gonna be a little sad.
Francis Maxwell, your thoughts? I don't know what
to say. Really enjoyed the fight. I thought Conor McGregor did justice for what he set out to do. I was texting Jason back and forth, and Jason's words definitely rung true to me, telling me that McGregor would have been close to death if the fight would have been on. I don't know. Big role. I watched his fight against Nate Diaz, and I saw a very similar Conor McGregor in that sense. I don't know. I just feel like it would have been done justice if the referee would have allowed it to continue, and if Conor McGregor hit the canvas, he hit the canvas. I just felt like he was still, his body looked receptive in a way that he was trying to avoid those punches. He was trying to duck. He was trying to move. Now, regardless, Floyd Mayweather was going to win the fight, whether it be in that round. I just felt, in my opinion, jump in, especially if he would have jumped in after the first set of 3 that Floyd Mayweather threw. But he waited until Mayweather started to throw another couple of punches, and then McGregor started to lean on the ropes a little bit, and then he decided to end the fight, and an anticlimax at the very end. The rest of the fight, you can tell, I thought Conor McGregor won the first 2. I think Floyd Mayweather controlled the rest of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
you had Conor winning the first 3, Jason? Is that what I saw?
I had Conor winning the first 3.
I agree. I think that's what I had as well, and then I had Floyd taking over 4 through 8.
So Francis, just to kind of counter your take of the fight, which was really well. This was the risk that Conor McGregor took in taking on Floyd Mayweather, especially in 8-ounce gloves. We spoke about this yesterday. When I came in studio, when you're fighting in 8-ounce gloves, you don't sometimes you don't know the kind of injury that you're sustaining because it's 8-ounce gloves. You don't go out like a light. Yeah. You know, he could very well be concussed. We don't know, and he won't know until he gets checked out by the doctors. That's my first point. The second point.
Allow me to interject real quick. I didn't see anything, and look, none of us are doctors, but usually with a concussed fighter, you see something where they're not really with it. There was nothing about what I saw post-fight that he was not with it. Now, that's not to say that he can't mask it, but I saw nothing of him being concussed. I think he just got his ass beat and he was tired.
Well, yeah, my point was, you're right. My point was in mid-action, you don't know. I believe at the point the fight was stopped, Floyd had just landed a left hook. Conor's hands were not up. They were both below his waist, and he was falling into the ropes. The referee was in a good position to see him falling out of eyesight. So it's the referee's job to stop it one punch before, then one punch late. You never know. If he takes one more punch, he might fall out the ring. If he takes one more punch, he may fall backwards in the back of his head, may slap off the canvas. And these, like I said, we knew that the referee was going to be on high alert in this fight because you have a man who's never fought in a boxing ring before fighting arguably the best boxer ever. Right. So, you know, while I agree with you, to some people, I can understand why the ending was anticlimactic, because maybe, you know, you want to see him go out on his face or his back, but I'm a proponent of stop it one punch sooner than one punch.
Francis, real quick, allow me to interject here. Francis, try to grab your headphones so we don't hear an echo on your end, if you possibly can.
Grab my headphones.
Okay.
Rick, really quick, I think this is important. So Kevin Ioli of Yahoo Sports just tweeted out 2 minutes ago the scores at the time of the stoppage from the three judges: 87-83, 89-82, and 89-81 for Mayweather. Very decisively in Mayweather's favor. I thought it might.
Which I don't agree with.
I thought 87-83 seems pretty fair. I thought the 8th round was if let's just say the fight went on, and let's say it was as brutal as round 10. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Mayweather's winning that fight unanimously, and it wouldn't even be a question. But that 8th round was the interesting one, in my opinion, because I thought the first 3 went to McGregor. I thought the next 4 very decisively started to fall into Mayweather's favor. And then the 8th round, there was some trade-offs in what I would think a lot of the fight fans around the world watching this circus, it wasn't to be taken like a circus, because this idea that Mayweather was ever going to come in and knock him out in the first or second round was just, you've never seen a Mayweather fight.
Right.
And if the other way around, that Conor comes in and shocks the world, is really fun to think of. By all means.
Of course.
And look, I'm here.
But what I noticed and I appreciated about Conor was he said that this fight is not going to go past 4 rounds. And you saw him at the start of the 4th round run over to Floyd, pin him against the ropes, and start trying to land heavy leather. Some of them were hammer fists. But
some.
Majority of his punches that landed were hammer fists.
I'm trying to give Conor, you know, his just due.
Look, Britt, I'm wondering if you agree with this. I was telling Rick and Francis too. I was telling Rick before this, right before we started going live on YouTube. And shout out to everybody who's joining us right now. There's like 1,500 people, and I'm in complete shock and disbelief.
Over 1,900.
That 1,900 people want to watch this, so I thank every single one of those people.
Francis, nice.
I split it in half, right? Let's start with the bad days. The illegal half that McGregor was reflexively showing, hammer fists, the shots to the back of the head, the stuff where Rick mentioned fighting like Zab Judah in the clinch, maybe a little bit dirty. Yeah. The other half that wasn't illegal, that I don't think Floyd has really seen before, to me was truly remarkable.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something that Floyd has seen. And the Pacquiao fight was 5 years late. And the Berto fight was even as Conor put it in a tweet not long ago, seemed like a business decision. Completely. It still felt in a way through those 10 rounds that Floyd had to prove it. And of course he did. And just given that element of the entire fight, I just don't see how anybody lost buying it.
So I'm just curious. By the time of the stoppage, did you guys have Floyd up 6-4?
After the 9th round,
After
round 9, I started getting concerned for Conor because he looked gassed. and Floyd was starting to land power way more than Conor was doing the light jab. But that was just my feeling. Is like, shit, is he gonna make it through 4 more? I was amazed he made it through 2 minutes of round 10. But credit to him, man. He's got a heart.
Where I think my my naivety comes in is Jason and I sat almost ringside as was pounding Wonder Boy to the point where we were like, oh my God, someone stop this. Like, this is at UFC when Eddie Alvarez was fighting Conor McGregor, and they didn't stop it. So I guess my naivety in this situation is based in a UFC situation where we see that fighters are almost beaten to a pulp and given every chance to bounce back. So that's where some sort of sour grapes, because I was so excited 2 or 3 rounds in that Conor McGregor seemed to be showing that he had every ounce of respect to be in there and was looking every bit the fighter. I love the way that he consistently changed his stance. I love the way that he kept Floyd Mayweather guessing. But round 5, I believe, when Conor McGregor's hands started to drop a little lower. I know he keeps his hands low most of the time anyway, but he just started to look that tired way that I remembered seeing him. And I thought to myself, oh shit, something's not going right here. This is a little bit of a struggle. But
it was round 6, Francis, is when he looked up at the clock, and it was reminiscent to me when it was like, oh shit, he's in dire straits because it's so similar to Nate Diaz. And the fight when he started looking up, when he had him in the clinch against the cage, Conor against the cage, and he looks up at the clock and looks up at the clock, and then he's circling out after, when he's circling out from hitting Nate a few times, circles out, puts his hands on his waist because you could kill time in the UFC like that, looks up at the clock, That's when I knew that he was in a horrible, horrible place, guys.
What Britain, I wanted to get Britain's thoughts on this because we talked about the mental side of Conor McGregor. I don't know if I did see Conor McGregor check out mentally, unless you're looking at that point. When I'm looking at round, I saw Conor McGregor start sharp. He started every round almost the exact same. He tried to catch Mayweather on the back foot, tried to land the early punches, but it just shows that landing a punch on Floyd Mayweather is not like landing a punch on anyone else. Like Floyd Mayweather punch, his jaw retracts. So every time you think that you're landing with a great amount of power, it's almost being absorbed. He absorbs it very well. So he wasn't being able to actually land any sort of power. So when I see with Conor McGregor towards the end, when he started to get tired, is I almost didn't see him hiding in the way that I thought many people would claim that he hid in the way he did Nate Diaz when he started to look to the clock and look for the easier way out. I almost felt like he still stuck to his game plan almost. But I just think that when it came to it, his fatigue, you mentioned Britain, just wouldn't do the things that his mind wanted him to do.
And you know, again, me and you had a really good conversation where, you know, I feel like I said at some point when McGregor starts to back up, the fight is already over. And not that he was quitting or checking out, but when you're the bigger man and you have the longer reach and you start to back up and you start to concede, you're not mentally checking out, but you're confused and you're trying to figure out, okay, let me regroup here. Let me try and figure out what's next, because clearly what I was just doing isn't working. To your point, I didn't see him check out. I didn't see him quit. I did see him do some borderline, you know, some borderline things. And I said earlier in our conversation, whatever that gray area is, that fine line, he has to walk that fine line. And I thought tonight he did it perfectly. He landed some hammer fists, something we don't traditionally see in boxing. But the ref didn't call it.
Well, he let it's like letting him play in NBA playoffs, right? Like they just let him play.
Right. Listen, let me finish. He landed some hammer fists, which isn't traditional in boxing. The referee let him get away with it. There were some points in time where he was holding Floyd by Floyd's waist and was trying to step around him. Traditionally, you don't see that in boxing, but the referee let him get away with it. And in my eyes, if the referee doesn't call it, if the referee doesn't tell you to break or stop, you keep going, which is to this point, he hit Floyd with either a body shot or a low blow. I didn't see it because Floyd's back was to the camera angle when he landed that shot, but Floyd backed up into the ropes, into the corner, and Conor came straight for him. And everybody in my home was asking me, is that legal? Should he be? And I said, no, the referee didn't tell them to stop. And Floyd knows very well, you need to protect yourself at all times.
Did anybody find it weird, though, that Robert Byrd, like, at that exact time, bought time for Floyd and gave Conor, like, a stern warning for, like, 30, what seemed like an infinite amount of time, but it was probably like 25 to 35 seconds.
Byrd is sitting there going, what the fuck is going on?
Well, Rick, you have to understand. Rick, you have to understand, at that point, Conor had done so many borderline illegal things. And I think that Robert Byrd was trying to give him every chance he could to say, look, this is the fight of your life. I don't want to take a point from you. I don't want to make this any more taxing on you. You gotta listen to me. When I tell you to stop, that means stop. When I say break, that means break. Don't hold, So I think you have to be firm with them in that moment.
Hey, gentlemen, real quick. If you have a drink, let's raise it up to everybody who right now is watching on the live stream. Thank you to everybody.
4,000.
All 4,700 plus of you. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Continue. Yeah, there you go. Continue to send your questions as well. I'm going to start reading them once we get through our post-fight analysis here. But I just thought it was like the perfect time.
I think it's great for Rick to just make sure that his handle is nice and placed in the corner, just to make sure that his Twitter handle is the only one that everyone has been sure. So make sure to check out Rick Strom's Twitter, since it's the one in the bottom left corner, as he does the millionaire strut.
Yo, you should all, I mean, honestly, y'all really should be peeping Britton Harden's Instagram. I still think to this day there are 0 posts.
By the way, I don't know what you just said, but I didn't create this graphic.
Listen,
I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I don't know how else to set up the stream except for this graphic.
Gritton's first post is going to get 100 million likes. It's going to be the Conor McGregor fucking post.
But Rick, to your point about the referee giving a little bit more of a stronger word in Conor McGregor's ear, imagine you and I went on a nice trip to Scotland. I know that's tough to think about, but imagine you came with me to Scotland.
It's not tough for me to think about. It just wouldn't involve you.
Okay, very well. But imagine you decided to come with me, and all of a sudden you decided to just walk across the street in a law that is perhaps one that is more prominent in Scotland that you are not aware of because you've not been to Scotland in that many trips, so you don't know the law that's there.
Never been.
Would you expect someone to come up to me as a Scot and be like, okay, you need to listen to this step by step? No, he's gonna explain it to you as a Yank that tries to take advantage of the situation and he's going to try to explain it to you.
First off, I'm not a Yank, all right? I'm a Chicago Cub, all right? Firstly.
You're a Yank.
Secondly,
we're just Jews.
By the way, Jason coming in with the hammer fist. We're Jews.
That's it. Hey, look, guys, at least, so I got to say, the scene in Vegas, I've never seen, Francis and I were in New York, right, for 205. Which was you're just outnumbered. Anytime McGregor fights, you have to call a spade a spade. When McGregor fights, people from fucking Dublin fly out here in masses. The numbers I was reading is that there was about 250,000 that flew from Ireland to watch their boy fight. That number can't be expressed as just 250,000 because the entirety of T-Mobile Arena, maybe not ticket holders, but weigh-in and stuff like that, was filled. And you can't walk around the floor of the MGM or any single casino here without seeing Irish flags and watching people come out to support them. Mm-hmm. So to say at this point, I guess one of the questions I want to throw out to all three of you is at
real
what
quick,
point,
then I want to read some comments here.
For sure. At what point is this the end? Do we stop saying, okay, we don't believe in Conor McGregor? We know he didn't get the win. But it's taken me a long time to just say, all right, this guy's transcended something we haven't really seen in sports before. I think we got to give partial credit to that angle that he's rallied a nation and that he's been able to do something that no combat sports guy's done before. And I got to say, you can pick me any other UFC fighter. I don't know if they go 10 rounds with Floyd.
Yeah. Conor has
good point, and
absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Conor made a great show for himself. He competed with Floyd Mayweather at a very high level. Floyd himself admitted that he was surprised at the skill level. He landed some clean punches that I'm sure Floyd didn't expect would land. He cut some pretty sharp angles on Floyd that Floyd wasn't expecting. if anyone turns their back on Conor McGregor, who was a Conor McGregor fan before the fight, then they weren't a Conor McGregor fan. He has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And whoever just did that backflip on the bed in the room with you, Jason, tell that man to keep his feet on the ground.
Seriously.
Yeah, Jason, shout out to the 2 male strippers.
Yo,
just
that
came into the room in the
is,
back.
first of all, this is not guy collection. Second of all,
That is guy collection. It's
Second
really
of all,
quick. Shout
that
out
is
to
one of
Nez.
TYT Sports'
That's
own.
Wasank is watching the live stream right now. Tell shout out to Nez.
Damn. Wait, shout out to
Go,
Nez.
Go,
Shout out to
Nate in the
Nez.
back. I know them.
Yes, this is
Personally, I know that they're
intern
definitely going to have a great strip show for Jason right now.
All right.
Although
all right,
Francis,
all right,
Francis
all right.
prefers intern Zach. This is true.
Let's reset. Let's
Yeah,
reset.
right. To get to what Jason said there, I've been
Zach?
literally playing this. I've been playing this song.
Sorry.
Obviously, singing this song since Conor McGregor came to fruition. I witnessed firsthand what he did in New York, what he was able to gather that audience that I hadn't seen since I went to a Manchester United game or anything else in football, and I seen it transfer over to the fighting industry. And I think that we've been waiting for a fighter like that for
What aspect
several years,
specifically,
both in
Francis?
boxing. The overall passion. That's the main thing, Rick. It's the passion that's around. Like, there's something about a team that you grow up with, right? You know this. You grow up with a team, like you mentioned, the Cubs. In world football, people live and breathe Manchester United, live and breathe Celtic, Barcelona, Real Madrid. Fighter that you can tell me and breathe that fighter. Like almost every day, like they were captivated by everything he did. They wanted to watch every move, every place he went to. I haven't for years, and I don't think that. I think that boxing needed someone like this to come in and almost fuse with one of the best fighters of all time to make this explosion, what we've seen. But I think that Conor McGregor, at this point, time licking the lips, because Conor McGregor proved that he's able to at least go not the distance, but at least stand toe-to-toe with one of the greatest of all time. So as Britain already talked about, they're already thinking about whether it's Canelo Alvarez, whether it's GGG, whether it's Paulie Malignaggi, it's whoever is going to step in, guy, because while it might not gather the same audience as Floyd Mayweather, it's going to gather much they've seen in the past few fights. And the same thing can be said about Dana White. He now has seen that Conor McGregor can go to another sport, gather that audience. He wants to probably drag him back into the UFC and give him a sort of fight that he's going to be anticipating, he's going to want to see. So Conor McGregor at this point.
I don't know about that, actually. I think if Dana were to follow the money, then he would just want Conor to go back to boxing, because everybody knows that the money is in boxing. Like, remember when CM Punk fought Mickey Gall and Mickey Gall made $30,000 or $35,000?
But
there's just not enough money.
But Rick, he doesn't get every single boxing fight that comes around. He gets Conor McGregor, and that's it. He benefits from every single UFC fight that comes around. So if he gets McGregor back, you're not just getting. I think the undercards in the UFC far surpass what I think the undercards in boxing, but that's just my opinion.
Bad example tonight, but I think probably, yeah.
They stack their cards a little heavier. Fights that you definitely can be captivated by start to finish. So I think while Dana White sees the money in boxing, he sees the overall advantage of getting Conor McGregor back to UFC so that he can start to get this industry back to where he wants to see it. Because when Conor McGregor was fighting Nate Diaz back-to-back and Eddie Alvarez, boxing was in the shadows. It was by far and away pushed to the side. And it came back to the limelight because of Conor McGregor.
All right, let's get to some questions here, guys. So Jose, and again, everybody who's watching right now, thank you for watching. Submit all of your questions that you have for us, and I'm going to get to as many as I can. Britton, this one's for you. Jose Carvajal, is Floyd Mayweather the greatest of all time, yes or no?
Is Floyd Mayweather the greatest of all time? I mean,
Yes.
It's arguable, you know. And to give you my abbreviated answer, it's we will never know. He's most certainly the greatest of this era. I think that what depicts a fighter as being the greatest of all time is the impact that they had on the sport. So he's in a tie with me, with Muhammad Ali, and for different reasons. Muhammad Ali transcended the sport in the sense that he stood for something. He stood for social justice. It was a much more militant time where he was brave and had the kind of bravado that Floyd Mayweather has right now. And Floyd Mayweather, in the sense that he completely shifted the paradigm of what a fighter is expected to make for putting their lives on the line, for transcending the sport into pop culture, for making it cool to go to these fights in Vegas and bring all of this revenue to one city. So if you're asking me if he's the greatest of all time in the ring, it's arguably, the answer is yes, simply because at 40 years old, Muhammad Ali wasn't performing at this level, and no fighter in history has performed at this level at 40 years old. But he's in a tie with me with Muhammad Ali, and I hope that answers your question.
Jason Rubin, it does. Hector asks you, do you think there's going to be a rematch between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather?
I don't want to rule it completely out, and there's a very specific reason why I say that. I was somebody who laughed at the idea of Pacquiao and Mayweather and said firmly that it would never happen. And then the idea of McGregor-Mayweather coming around, I probably said the most asinine thing in the world, given the fact that it did happen. So why go against it now? It's a money sport. I mean, the belt was the money belt. It had diamonds in it and shit. I don't want to say it's not. I want to say it's impossible. I don't think there's anything now for Floyd to gain. Right? So the reason why I would be against it is you're giving Conor a full 10 rounds of fighting him. And that's an advantage for Conor, not necessarily an advantage for, I think, Floyd. Not, in neither case do I think Conor could win after what we saw. But overall, I got to see the numbers. And this actually brings up an important point. Yeah. How I watched this fight, and as Britton was joking before too, I think you mentioned your younger brother, the stream went out for a couple seconds. There was some massive problems. Daniel Cormier tweeted it. Yeah. Dick Vitale tweeted it, that the UFC Fight Pass crashed, that the pay-per-view was crashing in Florida and parts of California. And that's a disaster. But it also usually means, and no one wants to look at it from this angle, it usually means that there's so many people buying it. That the only way for it to crash is because they haven't expected that much volume. Right. So the number was 5 million pay-per-view, right? They said if it does 5 million, which, let's put that in perspective to the UFC. What was McGregor-Diaz 2 million pay-per-view buys? That's 250% more. That's what shows why boxing can reach so much more and why it becomes such a spectacle. I also mentioned at one point the amount of betting dollars put down was only a few million in its context short of the Super Bowl. And we're talking about the biggest American spectacle year after year. It just goes to show the absolute power that boxing has, regardless if you think it's a circus act, regardless if you think it was a joke of a fight. Every single person, and I wouldn't be surprised if it broke Twitter records for a sporting event or it was in the top 5. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the names Mayweather and McGregor hit the millennial audience because they're tweeting about it and they're Instagramming about it and they're Snapchatting it. And it hits the older audience. My father texted me, make sure you update me every second about the fight. I can't stay up till 12:30 to watch it because he's old. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to know. Possible for there to be a second fight? Of course not. My biggest question going back is what could possibly be next for Conor? Could the UFC offer enough money to get him back? The UFC absolutely needs him after what happened with John Jones. Does Conor fight a different boxer? Could Conor stand and beat?
Let me ask you a question in return, Jason. What would be a win for the GSP Michael Bisping pay-per-view? What would be a win in terms of
pay-per-view? The UFC's number to me has always been a win as 1 million pay-per-view buys because that's standard UFC numbers. There's been a couple articles circulating that the UFC is fucked. I don't believe that because I do firmly believe that there is a core audience that will never leave. And when boxing goes through its lulls, you have your Britton Hardens of the world, your Rick Stroms, your Jason Rubins, your Francis Maxwells, who pay attention regardless. You can tell me every day. You can tell Britton every day boxing's dead, and he will laugh at you and go home and still watch the fight. And that's important because there's a core audience for that, and that's what's needed. It's not all that different in a way from the NHL. You can laugh at the numbers for the Stanley Cup. Rick Strom, I know when the Chicago Blackhawks won, you were as happy as ever could be.
Of course. And
as every fan of every team will be. These leagues that we have now, the UFC, boxing, if you consider it a league, NHL, NBA, they're not going anywhere ever. Boxing's an Olympic fucking sport. You can laugh all you want.
Controversial, but yeah, it's an Olympic sport.
Of course it's controversial, but what does the media want in the end? Clean or controversial? It leans the other way. It leans towards controversial.
Yeah, and that's just to piggyback off of that. That's why this fight is doing the numbers that it's doing.
Yes.
And Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin is we might see it take a mild hit. I mean, this fight completely sucked the air out of arguably the best boxing match of the year, because it's controversy that they're selling. It's controversial. You have two polarizing figures coming together, meeting in a square circle. You don't know what's going to happen. Was it a farce? Absolutely not. Conor McGregor came to fight tonight, and so I think that both sports win as a result.
All right, Francis looks
I'm
bored.
just happy.
So let's throw him a
I'm just
question real
happy.
quick.
That's it. I'm a happy man.
James asks,
I'm not.
Conor has done well in boxing for his first match against a boxing GOAT. Francis, in your opinion, would Floyd do that well in MMA against an average fighter?
No,
That's a tough one.
there's not even. No, I don't think there's even a question. Why would you even ask that? It's
Because someone asked it.
anyone who watches
I'm asking
any
for
fight,
questions.
regardless. I think Floyd Mayweather.
Why would you ask that, Rick? How could you do it?
I have a better question for you, Francis, when you're ready.
Any average MMA fighter is going to get his legs broken in an instant. He's going to get his out because he's not adjusting for that. It's just a silly point to even consider. There's no way that would even last. But Jason Britton has said it's silly to even think that was going to be. Well, we were tweeting it out. I watched people tweet out saying, Conor McGregor's went 3 rounds already. Mayweather wouldn't even last 30 seconds with Conor. It's so stupid to even think about. Who's trained solely to be a boxer his whole life would step into the octagon where he could get choked, where he could get so many different options as to what Floyd Mayweather in that octagon that he wouldn't be prepared for. It's just a silly comparison. It was only going to be a boxing fight. That was the only way this was going to have any sort of substance to it. And as far as everyone else says, I'm happy with what I've seen. I watched the fight, and I was happy with the outcome, but still questioning how the referee ended it early, but still happy with what I seen.
Francis, did you really want to be like, as I guess this is more towards Britain, but to Francis first, would you feel more, I guess, justified in your analysis if Conor hit the canvas, got up, and then got the shit beaten out of him a little bit more for another 10 seconds? Because that's what was going to happen.
If Conor hit the canvas, the referee would have called it.
Was that?
The referee called it when he was on against the ropes.
Right, he called it against the ropes because, as Britain always says, you live to fight another day.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I know fatigue, and I know what fatigue can do to your body, and certain things that makes you look aesthetically a lot less responsive than what you actually are. And Conor, I'm just going case by case of what I've seen in the past, both in the boxing ring with what I mentioned with Chris Eubank in one of his previous fights. And Britain and I don't want it to go to that extreme where Chris Eubank was landing blows that were doing serious damage to his opponent and ended up putting him in a coma. I didn't see it at that range. Conor McGregor was still moving. It was still trying to evade the punches. And then on the other side of the octagon, where I've seen Tyron Woodley just landing blows, but he was still responsive as well. So if Conor McGregor went limp and just completely dropped, I think I would have been more accepting. I just thought that, in my opinion, I seen Conor punches.
So let's let Jason. Let's take a back seat for a second. Let's let Francis and Britton duel out this next question. And Britton, I'll start with you. Brian Slack says, as in Conor, he wasn't even stunned though. He was. Why not let him get knocked down? So Britton, in your opinion, very first, why not let him get knocked down?
And this is to Brian. Brian asked his question.
Yes.
Brian, he wasn't allowed to, I guess, stumble and hit the canvas for a myriad of reasons, which I've touched on and I will again touch on. One, he's never fought in a professional boxing match before. So there was always going to be that high level of attention paid to him once we knew he got the adrenaline dump and his energy started to go down. That's one. Number two, when you're fighting in 4-ounce gloves, it's more apparent the damage that you're taking because you likely fall on the ground and your body does go limp. In 8-ounce gloves, you can sustain injuries that you don't know that you're sustaining until after the fight, sometimes days later. There was a fight where Timothy Bradley, if you'll recall, Brian, if you're a boxing aficionado like myself, Timothy Bradley fought against Ruslan Provodnikov, and he said weeks later his voice and his speech was slurring. Weeks later, he had gaps in his memory. Weeks later, you know, the swelling still hadn't come down out of his face. They fought in 8-ounce gloves, so it's not always apparent. You always want to stop the fight a punch sooner than a punch later. Conor McGregor admitted to the referee. He said, listen, when he stopped the fight, Conor McGregor didn't argue. Conor McGregor didn't say, what are you doing? I can keep going. Conor McGregor said, I was tired. I was fatigued. He shook his head. It was the right thing to do because, in my opinion, as big as Conor McGregor looked when he at the opening bell, if you ask me, he shrunk a little bit by the 10th round, or was it the 10th round when the fight was stopped?
10th round, yes.
Yeah.
Same as Ricky Hatton.
He looked a little bit smaller in stature to me. You know, I'm not sure what vantage point, you know, everyone saw the fight from, but from the vantage point that I saw, Conor's hands were down. He wasn't protecting himself. He got caught with a left hook and he was falling into the ropes. For all the referee knows, he's on his way out of the ring. For all the referee knows, he's on his way to his head slapping the canvas. And you need to have this kind of, you need to be aware and you need to pay that kind of attention to the fighter when his body starts to slump like that.
Francis, what do you think?
No, Britton makes valid points. The only thing I disagree with him is in what I've seen with Conor McGregor in these past fights, both Nate Diaz round 2, is when Nate started to land punches, and the second time in the octagon, Conor was fatigued as well, but it was still evading those punches and was still responsive to blows that were coming at him. So it was when Floyd Mayweather landed the first on his head in round 10, Conor took a massive step back. If the referee stepped in then, it seemed to me a valid point in which he would intervene because Conor looked less responsive right there. He looked to me like he took that hit, adjusted, and started to try and move again, and he got lower, which I agree, he shrunk. He tried to find a way to maybe move towards Floyd Mayweather, and as he said in the end, to try and link up with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is the master of trying to preserve time. If Conor McGregor was able to try and use some of that to get closer, just to give himself maybe go into the next round, which he would have lost either way. And I get what Britton's saying about you want to end it a punch early because no one wants to go down. But I'm just thinking in the past, like, I'm a neutral fan that's never watched a boxing fight. I've watched boxing all my life. And I think I've seen boxers take further damage.
I'm not laughing at you, Francis. I'm laughing at some of these live chats because people talk so much shit. Go do your own live streams if you don't like it, my friend.
Okay, real quick. I understand what Francis is feeling because when it was stopped, I weirdly felt the same way. I felt, what is Jason doing? Oh, get the male strippers over here. The
strippers are here. My best friends are stripping.
Oh my God, Jason, get the male strippers.
Well, I'm talking to, look, you know what? F you guys. You guys want to appear on the live stream? You were watching the fight. You're doing work for TYT Sports. They've recorded Britain.
Francis, have they?
Recorded everything.
Nate was a great intern. He fetched many a Starbucks.
Nate was a great intern.
Look at this fucking man.
He fetched many a Starbucks.
Okay, real quick. I initially felt the same way. I initially felt the same way as Francis, and this is why you usually have to give yourself like at least 12, if not a full day, to really take in what you just saw, because as fans we overreact to what we saw initially. But I felt the same way initially, which was unfulfilled. I thought, like, if he's gonna compete and if he's gonna fight his way through 10 rounds with arguably the greatest that we've ever seen, let him taste the canvas. And granted, that's an immature way of going about it, and maybe that separates the fan from the actual professional. I felt as unfulfilled as Francis did with probably within the first 20 minutes of the fight ending, honestly. That's my raw emotions of how I felt.
Well, you know, I just want to, you know, not necessarily counter that, because all feelings, emotions, and
counter it, bitch. Hit me.
Are valid in this point. But I'll just say, you know, there's a young fighter by the name of Pritchard Colon who was engaged in the fight. looked like he was on his way to winning that fight. He took a lot of rabbit punches behind the head. The referee took a look at him. His corner took a look at him, and they decided that he was capable of continuing action. He continued the action until he couldn't anymore, despite him being ahead on the scorecards. That young man fell into a coma later that day, stayed in that coma for, I believe, over a year and a half, and now is subject to being in a wheelchair, and his life is forever changed. So listen, I don't know if, you know, and I'll never challenge anyone's knowledge unless you've never been in that ring before. But if you've been in the ring before, you've traded punches with a person, and you see the eyes of someone when they're severely tired, unless you just don't have a soul, you don't want to hit that person anymore. I've been there before. And seeing Conor McGregor shrink the way he did, seeing him fall into the ropes. I mean, listen, people can comment all they want to in the comments. If you've never boxed before, I don't want to hear it. If you've never taken punches in that boxing round for a sustained 3 minutes for 8, 10, 12 rounds, I don't want to hear what you have to say. The fight was stopped properly because Conor McGregor was fatigued, and it was academic what was going to happen next. He was going to take more flush straight right hands, more flush left hooks, more body damage, and something really, really bad could have ended up happening to him with those 8-ounce gloves. This fight was stopped properly because you have a Hall of Fame referee who's been doing this for, you know, I don't know how long Robert Byrd's been doing it, but he was appointed that position for a reason. He wasn't overly into the fight, trying to, you know, break them up. He let them fight on the inside. You know, Conor did what he was supposed to do. And I think that had Conor really had some type of debate about the way the fight was stopped, you would have saw him immediately. What are you doing? You saw, listen, when Nathan Cleverly got stopped, Nathan Cleverly immediately when the fight stopped, what are you doing? I'm still here. I'm still capable. When Robert Byrd stepped in the middle, Conor McGregor rested on the ropes and he looked up. Was the first thing he did, as if to say, okay, it's over. Yes. The fight was stopped properly, and it's justified in Conor McGregor's face. He didn't want to fight anymore, and that's the reason why the fight was stopped.
Totally fair.
This is why I appreciate Britton being on this, because he has that knowledge of not only just being an analyst, but of being in the ring himself. And it's the same way that I'm playing on the field and they talk about world football. I just have that sense of understanding of what it's like to play and compete, and you just have that understanding a little bit more so I appreciate his opinion on that. And when I wake up tomorrow, I'll probably think, okay, that was the right decision. It was just that raw emotion that Rick touched on where you're like,
right,
I'll just kind of let the guy go through. But I do want to say that I'm going to check out on the live stream. I've got you people.
How much alcohol you got to drink, the big guy?
But more and celebrate what I think was still an eventful night. But regardless, I wanted to give a little. It's a weird comment because I don't usually do this, but I wanted to say, Rick, arranging the live stream. It's been fantastic, both earlier on today. Having the Aussies in was good. Having all these different people.
It was fun.
Amazing that you. I want to say thanks for putting this together. It was a good way to look at the fight.
Oh, he's done?
Oh wow, I guess that's a drop the mic moment.
See, now I feel unfulfilled with that.
Holy shit! We're not paying him $100 million, right?
Wait a minute. Let's backtrack for a second.
Drop the mic on you.
You know what he did? He set me up to feel unfulfilled.
I have a feeling that Francis, I feel like that's his thing. He leaves people feeling unfulfilled.
Oh my God, bro.
Feels about 10 rounds. Look, I got to make this comment because I was going back and forth with Rick yesterday about.
Thanks, Francis.
I was at Jewel nightclub to see J. Cole. I thought I was going to see J. Cole. I really did. Thought it was going to be a great J. Cole show.
I know who you saw.
It turns out that Conor lasted longer than J. Cole did on stage. J. Cole played 18 minutes.
No way.
Yeah, he played one verse of 7 or 8 songs, and it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good 18 minutes, but that was it.
Did you pay to get in?
It was $37 for pre-sale.
That's not bad.
So less than cover for most, in general. But Just Incredible was a good DJ set, and Chance was there, and so is Draymond Green and Paul George.
Oh yeah, they were partying it up like crazy.
Yeah, they were out everywhere.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I didn't. If there was a prop bet, J. Cole or Conor McGregor for just amount of minutes in their respective venues, I very much would have bet on J. Cole. It would only need to be about 28 minutes.
Right. Totally.
So I didn't. Shock prop bet loss.
Jason, I got a question for you. The Cover Athlete Diary via the live stream says, I think I'd rather see a GSP versus McGregor than Bisping. You agree?
No. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna get. We're gonna get at a GSP.
We don't know what we're gonna get out of Conor next.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm done doubting Conor in the UFC. Like the thing with Conor McGregor at this point, right, is he has continuously tested himself. And one of the things that we don't, in general, as a media, give him enough credit for, Gervonta Davis didn't make weight. Conor did.
He's a professional.
Conor steps up every single time. Yeah. Takes fights with 2 weeks' notice, always makes weight, no excuses, and gets in there. Whether you can't stand Conor or you don't like his brand, and I was somebody who didn't, especially my peak of getting frustrated was the retirement tweet, dangling the media out there, showing how much control he had. I hated that, if I'm being honest. But at this point, how could you knock the guy?
Yeah.
He likes the challenge.
Yeah. Jason, to your point, Conor McGregor this was the perfect ending. This was the perfect ending to the night. This was the perfect ending to the fight. I said this earlier in the live stream. Floyd Mayweather, they may very well win the battle, but Conor McGregor is going to win the war. He absolutely made a great account of himself, showed a great account of himself in that ring. He showed some skill. He showed he had way more wrinkles to his boxing game than most people were giving him. People thought this was a farce. They thought this was a joke.
Totally.
They thought this was a joke. And he came to win the fight, and he showed wrinkles in his game that he won more rounds than a lot of professional boxers aren't able to win against Floyd Mayweather. Okay.
How'd you score in the first four, Britton?
I gave him the first three.
Okay.
But while he was, I gave him the first three, but the story of the fight didn't reflect the scorecards for sure. He was landing a lot of soft pity pat punches. He kept Floyd on the back foot. He kept Floyd on the defense for a large part of the fight. But Floyd, when he landed, he made it count. And what wins fight is clean, hard, effective punches. But just to wrap up that point, because I see we have a guest, and I want to introduce Eddie. But Conor McGregor has so many different roads that he can travel down now. Like I said, you have that built-in narrative already for Paulie Malignaggi. Did Paulie really get dragged in sparring? We don't know because we haven't seen the full thing. But we saw what Conor was able to do to him in sparring. We saw what he was able to do with Floyd Mayweather tonight, and it's almost making me want to see, okay, well, you have someone who's a little bit depreciated in skill from a Floyd Mayweather. Let's see what you're able to do with that person in a 12-round fight.
All right, Britton, good stuff as always. Eddie Mercado is now joining us from Bloody Elbow, of course, of the SB Nation Network. By the way, Eddie, if you have a drink, go ahead and take a little swig. Jason and I are going to. Britton is a fighter, so he's not necessarily doing anything. By the way, Eddie, with the phenomenal Paulie Malignaggi beard, so give it up for him as well with the Paulie Malignaggi beard.
I gotta say, I think he took it from me. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. But I might be the trendsetter in that department. So he might be rocking the Eddie Mercado beard. I don't know.
All right, fair. Does that mean you're stepping in the ring with Conor next?
Never. I don't. I think I have him by 30 pounds, and still no way. Not gonna happen.
Okay, so Eddie, we've been dissecting this left and right. We left off with Britton about talking. Obviously, we know what happened in the end. But where did you give Conor in terms of rounds in the fight before it was stopped?
I gave him 1 through 4. The 4th round was pretty close and debatable, but I ultimately gave it to him. He had a super strong start. I think Floyd was really intelligent with letting Conor come forward right off the bat, kind of seeing what he has, and then as the fight progressed, go ahead and move forward and really just kind of outclass the guy. But
go ahead.
Just Conor, he did way better than I expected and way better than a lot of people expected. Now, some people might say, oh, well, Floyd allowed him to do that. because of the way Floyd was fighting, who was true to his word. He said, "Hey, I'm coming forward," and man, he did. He was true to his word, and he went forward, which we don't normally see. And he didn't look like the Floyd we were used to seeing. He wasn't all defensive rolling and coming with that shoulder roll counter right hand. It was more offensive, and man, it was entertaining, and I feel like everybody won here. The fans, the fighters, boxing, the MMA in general. It's just a win for everyone.
So Eddie, real quick, and then I want to just open it up to everybody. Jason said that he doesn't necessarily know what's going to be the next step for Conor, and I agree with that because really the world is his oyster at this point. He's shown that he can succeed against the best of the best. Granted, it's an aged 40-year-old who just took 2 years off, Floyd Mayweather. But he's also shown that he can compete and be a simultaneous champion in 2 weight classes in the UFC. So in your opinion, Eddie, what exactly do you believe is next for Conor McGregor?
As you guys mentioned, Paul Malignaggi, of course, that'll draw in eyes, and it'll be a big payday for both guys. And the trash talk leading up, I think, will be even better and more genuine than the Floyd Mayweather build-up and that the whole press conference deal and whatnot. So, I mean, he has that. Conor has that. I mean, there's also the rubber match with Nate Diaz. Everybody wants to see that. I know I do. And I know Nate Diaz is waiting for that as well. So there's always that in the UFC. I'm not sure if the payday would be as big as boxing, though. So for me, that's like the big determining factor here is it's hard for me to see Conor going back, taking a pay cut to do a more violent sport.
Right.
So, it's interesting. Obviously, when he goes or if he goes back to the UFC, he will be able to ask for more money as now he is a megastar. He went toe-to-toe with Floyd Mayweather and did pretty decently.
Yes.
Right? Like, he did better than most people would have ever expected. Lasted to the 10th round. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible for your first
I've said
fight.
this before. He lasted as many rounds as Ricky Hatton did. And Ricky Hatton came in with a very awkward yet European style, much akin to Conor McGregor, even though he's a righty. But still, he lasted as many as a professional, not fighter, but boxer like Ricky Hatton. Britton, let me ask you something. So Big Rock says on the live stream, and by the way, thank you everybody for tuning in. He said Conor had everything going for him except experience. Do you agree with that?
He had everything going for him except for experience.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree because I don't think at any point power or speed showed up for Conor. I think that if Conor would have showed in the first 4 rounds where Floyd threw maybe 5 punches in the first round. His game plan was obviously to let Conor McGregor get tired, throw big shots early, and then walk him down and knock him out. And that's exactly what he did. I think that if Conor had any speed or power on his punches, Floyd wouldn't have been walking to him like that. I think that he would have been a little bit more defensive. So I think that he didn't have the power that he anticipated that he would. He didn't have the speed that he has in 4-ounce gloves. And I ultimately think that, he lacked speed, power, and experience. So, I ultimately disagree with that comment.
Is there anything, B, that you saw as a tactician in the squared circle that Conor could improve on specifically?
Plenty.
No, I mean, like obviously he's going to be exposed against Floyd, but was there one thing that you saw that he could specifically improve on?
Absolutely. I'll say the very first thing that I'll notice is that he didn't have a crisp jab at all. His jab, which I said on TYT, how Mayweather beats McGregor, Conor's jab isn't strong. That's the number one and the most important punch when it comes to boxing. That's your defense. That's also your best line of offense. His jab had no power behind it. It was very jiggly. He was just kind of keeping it out there as a rangefinder, and then he would push with it, which is why you rarely saw Floyd's head snap back when he was hit with it. I think Francis made a good point of Floyd absorbed a lot of the punches that he was throwing, even though he wasn't rolling them because he kept his chin tucked. Had he been throwing a powerful enough jab, you would have saw Floyd Mayweather's head snapping back a lot more than it was. So, of all the many things that I saw that Conor could have done differently, his jab was very, very weak.
Hey, Jason, I got one for you. Big Mouth Stan writes in the comments, Jason hella mad for no reason.
Me? I just had to piss like a motherfucker. Like I'm gonna be honest. Like I've been fucking sitting here for 3 hours. Look, when you're watching the fight on Instagram live, because that's where my life's at. Like I'm telling you, the fight. I'm at the Mandalay Bay. I can throw a football and hit the T-Mobile Arena. I can literally throw it and hit the T-Mobile Arena. And we realized that you can't
still
get
wouldn't
the
hit
fight
it
here.
though.
Me, no, I'd fall like at least 40 yards short. But you know, Tom Brady's doing quite fine, so I figured Eli Manning could throw under, I could throw under. Regardless, totally besides the point. Am I hella mad? I'm hella mad because I'm down like 360 on the tables. I'm hella mad because J. Cole played 18 minutes. I'm hella mad about everything besides the fact that pure joy came from watching these 10 rounds. And I can't express that enough. Like,
Right.
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I take Britain's word and Rick's word as guide towards a sport that I continuously learn under, because I think if you're not trying to better yourself, then you're not trying to learn, and vice versa. So the more you take in, the more that you watch the UFC and boxing, the more that you start picking up. And I just don't think there's anything that Conor has to hang his head about. And I think Floyd, in his own right, it just fits his narrative. You can talk so much shit about Floyd Mayweather and his character outside the ring, but the one differential that I'll make is, and even though I don't make this in the NFL, I do make it in boxing, inside the ring, his IQ is through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to say that about him outside the ring, but does it really matter? No, because this guy's taking home paydays.
No, because he's richer than everyone on the thread.
Literally richer than everyone. No, there's a really important point that Britain just made right there. Floyd Mayweather took home in this one fight, if it's hit its pay-per-view numbers or even came close, more than any one NFL player has ever made in his career. Took home in one paycheck. So whether Floyd needed the money or not, which I don't believe he needed the money, because he's got a club here in Vegas, and sure, he's flashy, he spends a lot.
Who gives a shit about the club in Vegas? Come on.
I do. Why? I give.
You want to know what's a ginormous waste of time,
6
Jason?
hours.
You're there. You want to know what's a ginormous waste of time? My Jewish brother, going to a strip club.
I'm not a huge
dumbest
fan
shit, dumbest system set up in the world, not America, the world.
My dumbness, if that's even a word, is my weakness is roulette. Sydney at Mandalay Bay, the blackjack dealer who hit to 21. I'm not even joking with any of you. Eddie, I know.
Before he hit to 21.
I have a boxing
understand.
I have a boxing
Hit me.
I have a boxing question.
No, hit Eddie.
It's actually for Eddie.
Hit Eddie.
Yeah, this is actually for Eddie. Eddie, I wanted to know, just kind of piggybacking off of the comment that I said about, the things that Conor McGregor could improve on. What did you think that Conor McGregor could improve on? And did Floyd Mayweather look his age to you, or do you think that he fought that way on purpose?
I'll start with Conor. What he could have improved on or can improve on, I think, is just overall polish. Like he was doing some grappling moves out there. Like he was taking the back and holding and hitting, and the hammer fist to the back of the head. The referee really let those guys fight out there. He really just stayed out of it. And props to him, but some other referees might not give him, award him that same luxury if he has another boxing match. He can be getting points deducted. He can be getting disqualified. There was a lot of low shot. Like there was moments in this fight where it got gritty. Like it was getting dirty out there. Mm-hmm. And, ultimately it cleaned up and there was mad respect shown at the end, which I absolutely loved.
Me too.
I think just overall polish. Like there's so many areas. Punch selection. Conor threw a lot of volume. He really tried to keep his volume up. And like you said, the power wasn't there in the jab, but the jab was present. And that's crucial, especially in MMA. The jab is one of the most underutilized weapons. Guys just don't use it. They don't take advantage of it, and there's really no good reason why not. Because it's dangerous. It can be offensive. It can be defensive. It can set up other shots, and so I think he threw a lot of volume, but they all didn't land clean. So that comes into play with the gas tank in the later rounds, but. As we saw when Conor fought Nate Diaz the first time, he had issues with the weight, and he really adjusted for the second time, and he looked much better. So if Conor boxes again, I think he will look much, much better. much more polished, and I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up a win against Malignaggi. And if the odds are worth it, that might be a solid bet.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic point, Eddie, especially the Diaz.
Yeah, really good point. And I want to hear your take on Floyd, but just to kind of interject on what you said, or more so segue. I think that Conor McGregor is still finding himself. He said that he wasn't going to break away from what he traditionally does, and I think that's smart in the sense that what got you to the party, you want to incorporate some of that, but then as a boxer, he doesn't know who he is. So when you go against TBE, there's a lot of things he's going to learn. There's a lot of tricks that he's going to take away from this. And I think that if he goes into a ring with a lesser fighter, a B-level fighter, maybe a Paulie Malignaggi at this point in his age, maybe, I'm not sure, because Paulie's really smart. But if he really wants to commit to boxing, you can see a way where he has the physical tools to do it. And once he learns how to pace himself over 12 rounds, and once he figures out, hey, I may not be the biggest puncher in boxing as I was in MMA, maybe I'm a volume boxer. You see volume fighters in boxing be very successful at the highest level because they know who they are and they know their skills. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know how to survive when he got tired in the boxing ring, especially against somebody as polished and sneaky as Floyd. So I think that what happened was academic, and it's what we pretty much saw. I want Eddie. I want you to quickly tell me if you thought that Floyd looked his age, or if you think that he was fighting like that on purpose. And then Rick, if you don't mind, I want to make sure we're getting through all the questions on the live stream.
We're good.
Yeah, absolutely. I do not think he looked his age. I think he fought a different style than we usually see. He just wanted to keep his word. He knew that he was the better boxer, and he knew he could come forward without the usual threats that are present against guys like Pacquiao and Maidana and Cotto. So when he's fighting those caliber fighters, he's defense number one all day, every day. When he's fighting this, Conor McGregor making his professional debut, well, he can take more risks. He doesn't have to be as adverse. He can let his punches go a little more. And that's why he looked a little. People might say he looked like he was showing his age, but I just think he was fighting a style that is not his style. Yeah. And it was still more than enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and it's easier. I think that it's easier for him to fight that way because he doesn't have to worry much about defense, because he knows, man, like if you've ever been in the ring and you hold those 10-ounce gloves up, they weigh something. You're not just walking around with 10-ounce gloves for the duration of a fight if you're not prepared for it, or 8-ounce gloves and you don't feel it. He knew that Conor's arms are going to get tired, and he knew when to turn on to turn up the volume in his punches, which goes back to my original point that Floyd Mayweather has been doing this since he was 3 years old. Floyd Sr. said, I started training him when he was 3 years old. Floyd Mayweather knows exactly who he is in the boxing ring, which is why he fights so defensively most of the time. It's easier for me to do it this way. I can come forward, but it's easier because I know myself. And he knew what he had to do tonight to get the victory. So, Eddie, I think
gentlemen, I'm going to interject for a second. I'm about to head out in a quick second. I just wanted to give a major shout out to everybody involved in this stream. First of all, Eddie, considering you do the MMA gambling page at times, especially with Bellator and UFC, I think you do a fantastic job following the lines. It's something that I'm very interested in and as always have been. So for any of those, make sure you follow Eddie on Twitter. I believe at the Eddie Marcato. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please follow those who do like to bet in the fight game, like myself. Eddie's got good advice. Eddie can make you money, but don't get mad at Eddie if he doesn't make you money. I do the same thing for Roto. So don't get mad at us. We're just giving you our best fun.
Did you bet on Floyd?
I mean, you got to put your money on money, except for the fact that I was betting specifically on very specific rounds of knockout. 10 wasn't. The one I nailed was over 9.5. And man, was I happy that fucking they got out of the 9th round.
Right, here's the more important question. Did you parlay him with other UFC fights?
No.
Oh, that is a missed opportunity there, man.
Okay, here's my other question. Does anybody know if, and this is no disrespect to a fantastic boxer, does anybody know what happened in the Miguel Cotto fight?
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
Who did Cotto win? Spoiler alert.
I didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see it.
Does anybody know?
I heard it was exciting.
Shit.
This will be a first for me, real time.
Cotto. Google
Right, I'm
search.
looking on Twitter. Hang on.
No, I don't want to know. I want to watch it.
Oh,
You don't want to know?
I lied.
I don't want to know.
All right,
Double
pull out your
knockout in the
headphones.
first
Pull out your
round.
headphones for a
Shocker.
second. Pull out your headphones.
All right.
No,
Well,
not
I-
you.
I-
Not you, Britton. Yeah, Britton.
I just
pull
want
out
to
your
say,
headphones.
Andy, it's been a privilege
Hey,
to be on the show
Cotto
with you,
won.
Rick and Britton, as
Cotto won.
always.
Okay.
It's great to see you, as always, boys.
I can pull it
Thank
back
you,
in.
All right, Jason Rubin, everybody. Jason Rubin. Well done, Jay. Okay. So to pick up where we left off, I just want to get through as many comments as we possibly can. Britton Vual says, this guy as in you is right. Going back to your initial point about how when fighters are hurt, you need to protect them. He says, boxers know. It's easy to get hurt badly. And I think the initial point is important, where he says boxers know. And a lot of people just know, including the referee. Now, if this were to be a Kenny Bayless-like fight, knowing how he likes to separate them as much as possible, as opposed to Robert Byrd, who just let them go and go and go, I think that a point would have been taken away. Not necessarily that it would have helped Conor to be given another 20 seconds. I don't think anything would have helped him. He would have been delaying the inevitable. But going back to your initial point about getting hurt, it just seems like both boxers and also a referee just simply know it's inherited as a fighter in that respective sport when one is just damaging the other, and it's best to save your bullets for another day.
Right. Absolutely. You don't want to wreck this guy to the point where he's no good in the future as a pugilist or a mixed martial artist. This is how he makes a living. And for example, since, we just touched on Miguel Cotto lightly.
Yeah.
Miguel Cotto went into a fight with Antonio Margarito, and Antonio Margarito absolutely assaulted him illegally.
Oh my God.
And if you watch the history of his fights,
well, go into it previously. What happened?
I'm sorry?
Go into it, like what happened with Antonio Margarito.
Antonio Margarito, they met at 147 pounds. It was a summit meeting at that point in time because Floyd Mayweather had retired. This fighter was going to go on and face Manny Pacquiao for big time money and be a mega star. Everyone assumed that the winner was going to be Miguel Cotto. He put on a boxing clinic for easily the first 6 rounds of the fight, but there was something very suspicious about his reaction to Antonio Margarito's volume punching after 6 rounds. And I think that what a lot of people didn't know at that time, which was later found out, was that he had plaster of Paris in his gloves. He had a cast-like substance that when wet will dry up and form a cast inside of his gloves, and which is absolutely illegal. And I don't think that he should have been able to fight after that boxing match. But again, money talks. Absolutely assaulted Miguel Cotto and beat him to a bloody pulp. The fight should have been stopped probably 2 rounds before that. And in my opinion, Miguel Cotto never performed to his highest level again, even when he fought Floyd Mayweather. He was a shell of himself. And everyone wanted to see at that time what a prime Miguel Cotto would have done with Floyd Mayweather. And I was one of those people that I thought Floyd Mayweather would have won the fight, but I thought that it would have been very close because Miguel Cotto was an amazing boxer. He could dish it, he could take it, and something about him, let's just put it like this. He lost a piece of himself in that ring. He left a piece of himself in that ring. Yes. And he, from that point on, became this sympathetic figure in boxing that he always kind of felt like he was slighted in the boxing world, owed him something because he wasn't saved. Now, that happened to somebody in Conor McGregor, who's never had a boxing match before, fighting one of the highest level precision fighters in the game right now today. He was getting hit with flush right hands, flush left hooks, and he needed and deserved to be protected.
As I'm looking at it right now, after Antonio Margarito, he beat Michael Jennings, he beat Joshua Colati, he lost to Manny Pacquiao, he beat Yuri Foreman, who tore like both ACLs and MCLs in that fight. Ricardo Mayorga, he beat Margarito without hand plasters, lost to Floyd, lost to Trout, and then he lost to Canelo. Even speaking volumes to the point that you just made, since that fight, he became more broken. It seems like by fight. So I agree with you. Eddie, I want to, yeah, go ahead, Britt.
I was going to say, and there's 2 fights on that record that don't necessarily reflect the battle and the damage that he sustained in those fights. The battle against Joshua Clottey could have easily gone in the other direction for Clottey. He took
because he got his eyebrow cut or his eye cut in like the 4th round, 3rd round, and he still won.
Yes. Yeah. And there was another one on that list that you named where he took a lot of sustained punishment as well. But
Austin Trouty got beat.
Canelo
got beat. Yeah, those are the 2. Eddie, there was a question that someone asked on the live stream, and it was, would you rather see Conor against GSP or Bisping against GSP? Now, we know that the latter is going to happen at MSG, but if you had your pick, which one would it be? Conor being at 100%, of course.
Does it have to be those?
Yes.
I feel like the GSP Conor fight has the potential to, if GSP is the GSP of old, that fight really has the potential to be just a kind of a stinker, I think. I think Conor just might spend a whole lot of time on his back, and GSP spending a whole lot of time controlling and not necessarily inflicting much damage. But I think I would rather see Conor and GSP for sure.
Okay, and who do you think's going to win GSP Bisping real quick?
Man, there's so much of an X factor with the gap and the layoff of GSP. Yes. And Bisping, he's been, since USADA got implemented, he has been just on a tear. And it's hard to pick against him. And he'll probably be the bigger man. Man, yes. I really, like, it pains me to pick Bisping over GSP. Like, that pains me. But it's hard for me to pick someone coming off such a layoff. So I really hate that I'm going to say this, but I'm going to pick Bisping in that.
Okay. It doesn't sound like you're hating yourself, though. It still sounds okay. It sounds natural.
Bisping is the middleweight champion. That's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy to me.
Okay. I see that Michael Hutchinson is joining us, your co-worker, as a matter of fact, at Bloody Elbow.
Yes,
so we're trying to get everybody involved. Michael, I think your mic is muted, by the way. So if you could unmute yourself. There
Mikey,
we go.
What's up?
All right. Michael Hutchinson, what's going on, bud?
It's going good, man. It has been a long day. So I'm glad that this is all over. I don't know if anybody else caught it, but I was fatigued as hell, even before the fight started and then the delay. So I'm kind of glad this is all over. Yeah.
Okay, initial thoughts after seeing Conor last 10 rounds.
Not surprised at all. I had predicted that he would be finished round 8, round 9, so it took a little bit longer than I thought it would. But Conor McGregor impressed me for a round or 2. I think it more so had to do with...
A round or 2? That's it?
Yeah, 3 and 4, I think Mayweather, like, you saw him starting to get into his groove, and it's just like, yeah, this is where Mayweather slowly turns it up and Conor McGregor slowly fades. So yeah, first 2 rounds, definitely. I scored the 3rd round for McGregor, but it was pretty even. And then 4th round and on, it was all Mayweather, which is what most people expected to happen. I was just surprised, really, with the uppercut that McGregor landed, that he did land.
In the first round.
Yeah, in the first round, exactly. So impressed with his first round. Other than that, it was pretty much what most expected.
But as I was saying, and I just want to open it up to everybody real quick, so jump in whenever you want. But to Michael's point, and even to Britton's point, it wasn't even a flush uppercut. As I told Britton earlier on, it was an uppercut that grazed Floyd's chest. Now, if it landed flush, who the hell knows what would have happened? I don't think it would have changed the outcome, but it would have proven just a little bit more, Michael, about the power that Conor had. because we saw the speediness through the first 3 rounds. We saw very, very little power that phased Floyd. I think it speaks volumes to your point that he was just sort of feeling him out, letting Conor do what he had to do, and letting Conor expel a lot of energy, Michael, in order to just finish him a little bit later on.
Well, I'm probably going to misquote this, but Conor McGregor's like famous quote is "timing beats speed," and oh darn, what's the other one?
Precision.
Basically, precision. Yeah, precision beats power, something like that.
God, what a white boy thing to say. Oh darn. Like
rats. Anyways, yeah, that
awesome.
Floyd Mayweather's a defensive genius, and that power is really all about timing and accuracy, and McGregor didn't have that. And yeah, had that uppercut landed flush, then maybe it would have done something, but it didn't. Why? Because Mayweather's a defensive genius. So McGregor's power all comes in his accuracy. And in MMA, he's fighting guys who don't have the type of defense that Mayweather has, the head movement. And it showed in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And just to, kind of comment on the big uppercut that he did land, while it was impressive because he was sharp, and I just wasn't expecting it. It definitely made me take a step back and say, whoa, he has some wrinkles in his game. I knew that the fight was over when he landed it, and Floyd just kind of shook it off and walked forward. Because if you can't hurt Floyd Mayweather in the first 2 rounds when he's cold and haven't broken a sweat yet, 9 times out of 10, people don't give Floyd the credit for the kind of chin he has. I knew that he wasn't going to be able to stop Floyd the longer the fight went on. So, just to your point, when he's fighting these MMA guys, he is able to move with a certain finesse and a different kind of, accuracy and a different kind of speed. And it's hard. I think Shane Mosley admitted this when he fought Floyd Mayweather. When you're used to being the bigger, stronger man in the ring, bigger, stronger, faster, whatever your accolade is, and you bring that to the ring, you bring that weapon into the ring, it's hard to admit that someone is bigger, faster, or stronger than you. And when you get in the ring with someone like Floyd Mayweather, who hits harder than you think he hits, and he's faster than you think he is, he's more defensive than you think he is, and it kind of all caves in on you. And Floyd Mayweather says this all the time. It's different when you get inside the ring with me.
Definitely.
Yeah. Also, real quick, Conor, when he's fighting his MMA fights, he's really big on using his kicks, which often set up his hands. Mm-hmm. And, in a strictly boxing match, he doesn't have that luxury. So, when it's one dimension, he's really, I don't want to call him a novice because, he's been punching almost his whole life, but there's levels to this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
There's just levels to it. But he did well. He did well enough for me to want to see him box again.
For sure. You were going to say something, Rick?
I was going to read a few comments, but even going further with Eddie's points, even though we all didn't really have many expectations. It seemed like the consensus among all of us, because we're all in the media, was, maybe 5 rounds, maybe 3. Like, Floyd is going to be a tactician as he usually is. Floyd was voluntarily patient with Conor, allowing him to just expel so much force and energy, as I said to Michael previously. But I think I was surprised with not only Conor's heart and gamesmanship, but also I didn't expect him to come in like he was a 1940s fighter. Like, his stance was so awkward. There was no bend in his knees, really. It seemed like he was so open to so many punches. And I guess Britain can maybe speak more volumes to this as a fighter, as a boxer, rather. But it seemed like with his awkwardness style, it reminded me of like watching old Jack Johnson fights on YouTube, where he would just be awkward and up.
Yeah, well, in mixed martial arts, you want to have a wider base, and you want to be able to prepare for kicks. And that largely goes to, and it speaks volumes to him not bringing in a boxing coach. He brought in the coaches that he had traditionally trained with. Yeah. So, I mean, we weren't going to see him look like a boxer in there. He was always going to look like Conor McGregor. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that had Conor McGregor fought a C-level fighter, he would have probably won the fight. Had he fought a B-level fighter, it would have been competitive. I mean, but when you're fighting TBE and you haven't had much boxing experience, and you haven't brought in a boxing trainer, you are going to look a little bit awkward.
I mean, towards the tail end of the fight, Michael, as I saw it and as I heard it, John Kavanaugh was telling Conor, hit him and hold, which obviously spoke volumes to the fact that he was so incredibly tired. But I asked Eddie this, and I'm going to ask you this. And I introed Eddie onto the live stream, and thank you everybody for watching at youtube.com/TYT Sports, that he had the Paulie Malignaggi beard. Do you believe that people would buy the Conor-Paulie fight as it is right now?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I'm asking Michael, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people would buy it, but I think there's bigger fights for McGregor, and I think McGregor impressed in this fight for sure. I do think that the Malignaggi fight would be maybe competitive. I don't know a whole ton about boxing, but I think that Conor McGregor does need to go back to MMA immediately to get his winning ways, to show again that he's a champion, because people are kind of forgetting it. He beat Eddie Alvarez. It's almost coming up to a year. And then the Jose Aldo 13-second knockout was so long ago that he needs a fight where he can show, yes, I'm the champion. Yes, I'm a world beater, because it's been a while since he's done that. So am I interested?
Who's the perfect opponent, in your opinion?
Pardon?
Who's the perfect opponent, in your opinion, Michael?
Perfect opponent? Stylistically,
just to get the win.
I'm thinking Khabib would be the most interesting for me stylistically when it comes to his biggest challenge yet. That would just be an amazing fight, and you can do the whole Russia angle. Yes. Khabib isn't afraid to trash talk. He's one of the more entertaining guys in the lightweight division, which is a stacked division. I would like to see that fight next, but it doesn't make sense because Khabib's injured, or he gets injured a lot. McGregor says that he doesn't trust Khabib to actually make it to the fight.
Too much tiramisu, Michael.
Exactly, yeah. And missing weight recently, it's just a big risk. So most likely he'll fight Tony Ferguson, Kevin Lee winner, or a Nate Diaz trilogy. Those are really the only realistic fights I see happening. Or a super fight against Max Holloway. Could see that too.
I guess this is a question for both of the Bloody Elbow guys, but couldn't he just throw that in his back pocket with what Michael said of the Nate Diaz trilogy? Like, that could be there for another 2-3 years if he wants it, right?
You got to be careful with that, because at the end of the day, this is combat, and anything can happen. And it's not like these guys are only, in danger while they're in a fight. Like, these guys train way more than they fight, and they are at risk way more when they're not fighting. Like, that's just the way it is. So, to have longevity in this sport is really a special thing. So, it's really hard to bank on 2-3 years down the line, which is why a 4-year suspension for John Jones is devastating. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard to put that in your back pocket. It's kind of like you have to get it while you can, as quick as you can, and maybe even get out before we see a lot of guys who stick around way longer than they should, and it's tough to watch. So we don't want to see that. I think waiting too long is a bad thing. People will forget. People won't care. And who knows what Nate Diaz will be doing between now and then. He might just retire altogether, and then that fight's off the table. So I think he should probably get that in sooner rather than later.
This is the beauty of the live stream, is that we have 2 MMA guys and we have a boxing guy. So it's interesting to hear the contrasting styles between the 3 of you. Yet, as I throw this to Britain, in terms of boxing, do you think that Conor should go back to boxing, or do you agree with Eddie and Michael that he should just go and try to get a win and have a prove-me fight back in MMA?
I think at this juncture in his career, he just turned 29 years old. He has a growing family, and he needs to capitalize off of the brand that he's created. And I think that with him performing at such a high level against Floyd Mayweather, and there being speculation around how he performed against Paulie Malignaggi, I think that built-in narrative is what we're going to see. Listen, he goes and he fights Khabib. That's a tough fight for him if Khabib takes him to the ground. It's foreseeable that he can lose. If he fights Kevin Lee is amped up. He's ready to take over the division. It's foreseeable that he can lose. If he fights Tony Ferguson, it's foreseeable that he can lose. If he fights Paulie Malignaggi, there's a little bit more there's a little bit more of a foreseeable future where he wins that fight. And I think that he gets more money for the Pauly fight from Showtime as opposed to going directly back to the UFC. Because here's the thing. You think about Muhammad Ali in the sense that he took 3 years off, had never been beaten, and people still demanded to see him face off against Joe Frazier for the heavyweight championship because he was never beaten for that belt. The UFC will wait for him. Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee, if he's smart, he'll let those two beasts battle it out, and the winner, he'll say, now you go and face Khabib, and the winner of those two beasts, that's the person who he'll come back and fight. All the while he can train in this limited discipline that he called it. He can fight Paulie Malignaggi, settle that score, and those tougher fights will be there for him.
Fair, totally fair. There were a few more questions that I have for you guys, and then we're going to log off here. And we appreciate everybody watching again on the live stream here on TYT Sports. I guess my next predicament that I'm in is I thought that Conor really proved a lot in this fight. And I know that we've talked about this a little bit, but I was just surprised with how well he stuck in there, how well he fought at a distance. Now, granted, he tired at 6, and I brought this up to Britain, guys, and I'll bring it up to both of you respectively, is that by round 6, when he started looking up at the clock, it reminded me of the Nate Diaz fight, when you could just tell that he was gassed. And once he started leaning on Mayweather, it was similar to how he leaned on Diaz and just wanted the round to be over and he wanted to get the hell out. If there was one improvement that he could possibly make for the next boxing match that he has, because I believe that he will have it, and I guess I'll throw it to Michael first. What is the biggest improvement that you see for Conor if he were to compete and successfully, not even successfully, just win overall in a boxing match?
I think you mentioned a quote earlier in the live stream when I wasn't on. I was watching, and it was that the one thing that McGregor doesn't have is experience. And I think that quote's over Floyd, that McGregor has every advantage other than experience. I completely disagree with that quote, but it is true that McGregor does need a ton of experience to reach that next level. The reason he was gassed out wasn't because he has terrible cardio. It was because he's not used to boxing. And any boxer will tell you, you don't gain your cardio by running 30, 40 miles. You don't gain your cardio by swimming, by going on a bike. You gain it by boxing, just by putting in those rounds over and over and over again. And McGregor hasn't done that. He's put in maybe 500 hours. Meanwhile, Mayweather and the top boxers have put in 10,000. So he just needs to do that to get better, really. It's kind of a cop-out of an answer, not saying any specific. But, yeah, he just needs to put in more time in the gym boxing.
Eddie, what do you think?
He does need just overall polish. But like Britton was saying, finding out who he is when he's a boxer, finding out what's his style, and just really doing the soul searching and really dissecting his game like he did when he lost to Nate Diaz. I mean, he really showed everybody how to lose like a champion and fix your mistakes and come back and then, face your demons and show that you can improve fight to fight. I mean, he's excellent at that. And even post-fight, he said in the interview, like, hey, when I fatigue, I get all wobbly like that. Like, I know this. That's a thing. Maybe it's not that I'm hurt necessarily, but when I'm gassed, fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? So, he just I really think Britton nailed it right there with the finding out who he is and what suits him and how he can be successful in there, because he really knows that. And he shows that with his MMA fights and how he improves from fight to fight. He's his own worst critic. And I think that's why he's so successful. He's not afraid to fail. And, he's a learner. He's a student of the game. He's a true martial artist.
Yep.
So I like I said, if the odds are there, I would probably put something on Conor over Malignaggi. So
yeah. I agree with that as well. Gentlemen, look, it has been an absolute pleasure to have all of you guys on. Britton Harden, we have gone through so many fights, not necessarily through a live stream, but it's been a pleasure. speaking with you, Eddie Mercado and Michael Hutchinson, a Bloody Elbow of SB Nation. You guys are fantastic. Michael, I know you jumped in late, but the next time that we have a live stream, you are the first guest that we are bringing on because you guys bring some incredible perspectives from the MMA world. So we really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Love being here, man. Thank you.
I'll be back for GSP McGregor.
We're taking you up on it.
Yeah.
We're taking you up on it. And for everybody that was in the live stream, thank you so much for joining us. It was a weird fight week. It was probably one of the weirdest that we will ever see, but we appreciate you guys tuning in, so thank you so much. And for Michael, Eddie, and Britton, I'm Rick Strom of TYT Sports. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.